video is going to be about the GPR, the general purpose rifle, the shit hit the fan rifle, the jack of all trades, whatever you want to call it, the one that can do it all. I think everybody should have something like this in their arsenal, just giving you a wide range of capability. You know, close range, long range, whatever you got to do, nighttime. And what really makes a GPR is something that can fulfill every role that you need it to fulfill. With that kind of comes a drawback of it's not going to do every single role fantastically. You know, you're going to be trading off somewhere, but it can generally do everything. So we're going to go back to front, same way high point owners wipe, and I'm going to show you everything on this and what it's used for and why I have it on there. So this isn't quite as important, but stock, I have a Magpul CTR. It's a simple stock. It's been around for a really long time, probably one of my favorite ones. It's just nice and slim, works good with kit and a plate carrier. And going up from there, I have a radiant charging handle. Like the size, really easy to, you know, clear malfunctions, charge it back. This is the one that's supposed to help out with suppress, kind of deflect the gases more in front of you. Down from there, I have a radiant safety. I have it on the 45 degree. Doesn't really matter, I don't know, just kind of testing it out. A Geisley SSAEX trigger. Anyway, one of my favorite triggers. On the other side right here, we have a radiant bolt catch, a little bit oversized, kind of helps you out there. A less important feature, but kind of nice. It's the new Magpul dust cover. Let's get into the LPVO, because this is probably the biggest thing on the gun that gives it its capability. LPVOs, it's a give and take. It's a trade-off sometimes. So obviously that being close range. The one I have is the Vortex Razor HD 1:6. The 1X on the Vortex Razor is probably the gold standard for LPVOs. It's basically as close as you can get to a red dot through an LPVO. I'd never say you can get just as fast as a red dot, but with that being said, obviously with training you can mitigate that and you can get pretty dang fast with it. Just look at Jerry Michalak, you know what I mean? Competition guys, 3-gunners use LPVOs a lot and they're insanely fast at what they do, a close-up work. Why wouldn't you choose a red dot and magnifier over this? And in some cases you might would, and I don't hate on them. I have that set up too on one of my other guns. So with that being said, you can probably get effective shots out to 500 yards for a shot hit. Beyond that, you're probably gonna have to be a really good shooter. I mean, even at 500 yards, you're gonna have to be a pretty good shooter as well. But out to range, you're definitely have a lot crisper of an image. You generally better reticle because it's not a red dot, it's not a holographic. Where a red dot shines more so over an LPVO is when you start getting like really awkward shooting positions. So you're having to turn the gun sideways, you're having to poke it through a hole, break a shot in a kind of an unconventional stance. Getting behind that eye box can sometimes be a challenge, but obviously with training, you can mitigate that, you can get better at it, and you can get faster at it. Red dot's always just going to be a little easier and more comfortable. But getting out to range, this is where it shines. There's other scopes on the market that go 1:8 or 1:10. I prefer the 1:6. You get a way better eye box, I think, throughout the whole magnification range. And price-wise, this isn't that bad. You can pick these up on the used market for like $900, $800 if you get lucky. And I'm not even talking like the old models. You can get the newest ones at that price. Brand new, they're right about $1,500. Going up from the LPVO, I do have a top-mounted dot. It is a Hollow Sun 508T, I believe. This is one of my favorite red dots. It's an RMR footprint. The reason I have it top-mounted versus canted is when you're shooting with night vision, having it up that extra little height makes it a lot easier to use. And really, this is mostly up here for passive aiming with night vision. I rarely really use it in daytime. Passive aiming with night vision through an LPVO is not really an option. So having a top-mounted red dot is going to help you do that. If you're doing night shooting and you're practicing passive aiming, mandatory to have a dot. And I think it's also mandatory to have it top-mounted. You can have it on the side, and you can still get your nod through it. and look through it and everything. But the most important thing that I try to drive home with having a 12 o'clock mounted dot is transitioning from your dominant side to your non-dominant side. I've used them before. It's extremely hard to really like switch over to your left and rotate the gun over and try to get a shot going. Much easier just to have that dot on the top. It's the same aiming position each way, keeps it consistent. So going up from the dot, pressure switch I'm running is the Unity Axon. So big fan of this one. Just kind of the footprint of it is a lot smaller than other ones. It's got a recessed white light button. Really like that. ND is probably the worst thing you can do at night. Discharging white light at night can obviously give away your position indefinitely. If there's people around, they're going to see it. So going up from there, I do have a PEC 15 full powered version. So as far as lasers go for night vision, a full powered PEC 15 is probably the bare minimum of what you should have, in my opinion. Obviously, I know they are pretty pricey. There are cheaper options out there that can probably get the job done. With this, you're going to have a very powerful laser, and you're going to have a pretty decent illuminator that is pretty adjustable. With that being said, it's really kind of luck of the draw with a PEC 15. Sometimes the illuminator will have artifacts in them, and it kind of makes it a little bit harder to differentiate targets out to, like, you know, past 100 yards. Luckily, the one that I got, the illuminator doesn't have very many artifacts in it. Up from the laser, I have a Surefire Scout. I have the 100 Concepts cap. That's pretty important to me, having a cap on your light, just so you have a little bit of a fail-safe there, so you don't ND. Up from the light, I do have a Surefire RC2 Mini. I opted out of the full-sized RC2, went with the Mini, because it is maximized for a 14.5. So you're going to get the same performance basically out of a full-size shooting through a shorter barrel. It's going to help mitigate that flash, which is probably the most important thing about them. And it is pretty okay on sound. So less important feature, I have a Samson Machine grip. This one's pretty cool because the bottom just unscrews off. Grip comes off, you can put it in a bag somewhere and just have a slick bottom very quickly. No tools needed to take it off. So let's go into inside the gun. Even more important than all the shit that you have on the gun is how the gun works. So a reliable gun is obviously better than an unreliable gun. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this. I probably have about 6,000 rounds through it, maybe 7. And I've never had a malfunction out of this. Diving into the actual operating system of this gun. But the most important thing with reliability to your gun is how the components are made, what material they're made out of, and also how the rifle is gassed. A lot of people are really into mid-length guns with really small gas ports, super soft recoil impulse, and that's great. But when you look at a gun that is, dare I say, a duty rifle, you really want something that is going to be a little bit closer to the end of overgassed. And the reason I say that is because when this gun starts to get dirty, let's say you haven't had a chance to clean it, and it's got some grime going on, having a little extra gas is going to help you blow through that and cycle properly. You know, when you have these kind of boutique guns that have really small gas ports, just to give you that, you know, be on the bleeding edge of like locking back on that last round and cycling every time for that soft recoil impulse, you might be cheating yourself a little bit. In a dire situation with the gun kind of getting dirty, if you do have a gun that is a little bit softer on the recoil impulse and the gassing is kind of mitigated a little bit with a smaller port, it might not be able to push through debris. So it is super important, in my opinion, on a duty style rifle to have appropriate gassing, being a little bit on the higher end there. And that brings me to another point, which is wear. It is true, higher gas gun is going to have higher wear. That's how it works. But with that being said, it will still last a very, very, very long time. Like I said, 7,000 rounds isn't anything to cry home about, but it is still a lot of rounds, and a lot of rounds to have this gun still functioning perfectly. I haven't changed anything on it. So the base of this gun is a Colt, so it's got a Colt bolt carrier group, Colt bolt. Pretty much everything's Colt except for the trigger, and then some of the components being the safety and the mag catch. So it is a mil-spec bolt carrier group. That brings me to another point. Why direct impingement over a gas piston gun? Me personally, your piston is inside of your bolt carrier. When you have a gas piston gun, it operates, the piston is actually up front where your gas block is. So essentially what that is going to do is your bolt carrier is not going to act as a piston anymore. So you're not going to have that forward pressure kind of relieving the bolt off of your barrel extension when it extracts back. With a gas piston gun, your bolt is just going to be forced back because gas is not going inside of the bolt anymore. So what that can lead to is a little bit more wear on your lugs, on your bolt. They can shear off. That's a pretty common failure point for ARs, and you're going to see a little bit more of that with a gas piston gun. They run harder. So not saying that it is not a good option for a do-it-all GPR gun. They are very, very reliable, but your recoil impulse is not going to be as soft as direct impingement, and overall, you've got some more parts going on. So you've got a few more little failure points. So that is up for you to decide. My opinion, I'm going to stick with direct impingement for my do-it-all guns. So that brings me to a conclusion with this. Obviously, the most important thing to do is get training. Training is going to allow you to be an effective shooter, effective rifleman, be able to use a gun, know how to manipulate it, know how to clear malfunctions. So whatever you can afford, get the best that you can afford. Don't settle. Do a lot of research. Try to pick something reliable. Typically, sorry if this pisses you off, but I stay away from Palmetto State. It is true. I mean, you can get a good gun from them, but I'm going to stick with well-known manufacturers that produce good ARs. Alrighty, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Any knowledge I have, extending that out to you guys, that's what I'm about. So with all that being said, I hope you guys have a good one. Don't forget to train, and I'll see you next time.